podcast. Catch Scott Sloan weekdays at 9:06 on 700 WLW.
There we go. It's Scott Sloan on the big one, 700 WLW. So yesterday I got into the big story with Westchester Township, and Westchester angry over companies that use inflatable characters or people dressed in costume to advertise the services of businesses in and around Westchester. So much so they said that people are signs, and that ruling is being contested. Businesses using people dressed in costume to advertise business, nothing new. And what bothers me is this about Westchester. We have a struggling economy. We have a creative solution to advertising that gainfully employs people, that has no impact, in my opinion, on the quality of life. There's no impact at all, as a matter of fact. And the alternative is eyesore signs that lay around and don't get picked up and turn into garbage on the side of the road. And faced with all that information, I think a good question here is, why would Westchester attack the little guy? Why would Westchester try to hamstring the small businessman, considering all that? Joining me on 700 WLW is trustee George Lang. George, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, Scott. How are you?
Everything is good here in Kenwood. How about Westchester?
It's always sunny and beautiful in Westchester.
It's a beautiful part of town. Now, let me ask you this. Why does Westchester hate small business?
I got to tell you, that is not a fair portrayal. Westchester is done very well with business over the years. We now have 3,000 businesses that call Westchester home and 50,000 people that work here. The real question is, why is our zoning punishing small business? And that's a fair question.
That's a fair question. What are the forces behind this? Because, they do it in Norwood, they do it in Hamilton, they do it in Mason, and these things are all over the place. Why is Westchester different? Why doesn't zoning want people wearing costumes to advertise, in this case, Liberty Tax Service?
Well, I'm probably the wrong guy to ask that question, because I think our zoning is wrong, not just in that, in other areas. And I can give you other small businesses that have left town, and they blame our zoning, specifically restrictive sign ordinances in our zoning, for putting them out of business. 3 years ago, I tried to get in place a zoning review commission to look at every text of our zoning and see how we can make it more business friendly and more resident friendly, because I believe property rights are sacrosanct. And it took me 2 years to even get this zoning review commission board put in place. And we've got this board put in place. They started work about 9 months ago, and hopefully in the next 6 to 12 months they're going to be finished with their work, and they're going to make some recommendations to us that are going to make our zoning what I hope is going to be much more business friendly.
That's good. Well, George Lang, you're a trustee. Who oversees the zoning department? Who are the bosses of the zoning department?
Hey, the buck stops with the trustees. If anybody tells you that's not the case, the buck stops with the trustees. The problem I'm having, Scott, you ever try to get government to change or move?
Well, that's that's why I will have a job forever, George, because that's kind of my job.
Yeah, that's why it took me 2 years just to get the other two trustees to agree with me. Let's have somebody review this.
I refresh my memory for those who don't follow these things. How many trustees are there in Westchester?
There's 3 of us in Westchester.
All right, there's 3 of you. Are they all with you on this thing, that it's kind of stupid to try and go after somebody dressed in a costume who's just advertising a business, or are there forces, other trustees who are against you?
I don't pretend to speak on behalf of my other trustees, but I believe that they would be much more supportive of our zoning code than I am.
Much more supportive than you are, meaning it may be 2 against. Well, I'll tell you what, in all fairness, because I'll put it out there, I know that they don't like to hear this, but yesterday we called, Lee Wong, right? He's the other, he's one of the trustees?
He is, yes.
We called Lee, and he answered the phone, and my producer says, he sounded like kind of giving me the bum's rush, said, let me find out if I'm available to come on Scott's show. I'll call you right back. Got a call back from his secretary, and the secretary, he said, sounded like she was reading a prepared statement along the lines that, well, we really can't comment on this. This is the fault of the zoning department. This is about the zoning. You need to talk to zoning, and of course, zoning is not going to come on the radio and talk, but now that you tell me that the trustees, like Lee Wong, are the bosses and basically tell the zoning department what to do, maybe he sounds to me like one of the individuals who may be against allowing people in costume to advertise businesses.
The vote is often 2-1 against me, and I don't pretend to speak for Lee Wong, but the bottom line is we're the trustees. We're responsible for the zoning code, and the buck stops with us. If someone's not happy with our zoning code, they have no place to turn but the trustees. We're ultimately responsible for it.
What is the argument? Again, I know you're for changing it, George, and you sound like a common sense guy, and I applaud that. But what is the argument against allowing someone dressed in a costume to advertise their business on a sidewalk as long as the business is open during daylight hours and it's not putting anybody in harm's way? Where's the impact on quality of life there?
You want me to argue? Make a point for a case that I fundamentally think is wrong.
You're opposed to. I'm asking you what the pushback is. It makes sense to me and probably anyone listening. But what kind of weak argument are they using against this?
Well, and what are they going to do next? Ban people that wear 700 WLW T-shirts? But they're in essence a sign of 700 WLW.
Yeah, I brought that up yesterday. I said, well, wait a minute now. If you say that a person is a sign, what about T-shirts handed out by business? What about T-shirts that are handed out by people like Lee Wong and your other trustees when you run for re-election?
Oh, or political signs. There's no restrictions on political signs. I can put my political sign up anytime I want, as long as it's not in the right of way, as long as I have the property owner's permission, and the township won't do anything about that. But boy, we sure punish businesses, and there's good businesses. People like Bill and Pat Langdon that opened the GOP pub that are out of business today, and they'll tell you it's because of our restrictive signing ordinance. Another one, Chef Louis, Asiatique, wonderful food, great place. He blames our restrictive signing ordinance as the reason why he went out of business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it goes on and on. And I understand you don't want it looking like the old part of Vegas on Fremont Street. I get that whole thing,
right?
Although that's kind of cool. But there's got to be a little common sense here too. That since you've been really strict about signage. These guys are going, well, I can't put a sign up, but I can have somebody dressed in a costume cut through the cloud. I think that's kind of creative marketing. And I'll give you some parallels here, George Lang. What about KT's Barbecue in Reading? The guy who put the barbecue mannequin up on the sign, and Reading was stupid enough to fight him. It was great for his business. Or most recently at Party in the Park, I've had a couple times on my show, the I Laughed at the Cripple Girl case, people, where the guy is out doing some guerrilla marketing, and the comedy show is a girl in a wheelchair who has MS, and she's the comedian, she's a comic. And they wind up having to go to court over this stuff.
And where's the victim?
Where's the victim? Who's the victim in both of those? Who's the victim with Liberty Tax? Who's the victim with KT's Barbecue? Who's the victim in I Laughed at the Cripple Girl kid? Nobody.
That's exactly right. Well, government is out of control. Government is in our lives on a daily basis, and I hope that people will form a revolution and revolt. We've got to get government out of our lives on a daily basis. Now, the argument for zoning one might make is all the success Westchester has had. Mm-hmm. I mean, listen to this, Lonnie. In the last 10 years, we've had over $2.3 billion in new investment, over 25 million new square feet of commercial construction, and over 28,000 new jobs. Westchester is one of the few communities that has flourished and prospered, while the rest of Ohio has suffered some very difficult economic setbacks. And none of that, or I shouldn't say none of it, very little is a result of the government. It's primarily because a business can move to Westchester and make more money than going to any other community that touches us. And the credit for Westchester's growth really shouldn't go to the government. It should go to people like Chris Wannenberg and Larry Schumacher with Schumacher Dugan, or John Berger with Duke Realty, John Silverman with Midland Atlantic, Dan Nyer of Nyer Properties. These are the people that are investing their times, their talents, and their fortunes to make Westchester a better place.
Yeah, it's a great community, and certainly that's the case. And you're naming some big league players there right now, but before they became big league, they started as small business people, George Lang, and much like the Liberty Tax people, much like the apartment managers that have people dressed in a Mickey Mouse costume waving to possible potential new tenants. And I think that is a great adaptive kind of attitude that small business people have to take. And I hate it when government bureaucrats stand in their way. If it doesn't hurt the quality of life and doesn't hurt me, I don't have a problem with a guy dressed in a Statue of Liberty outfit waving at cars on the side of the road.
I don't either. And then you run into the issue of selective enforcement, right? Because you have other businesses that are doing it on a daily basis that, is your business on the route that the guy has to pass on a daily basis that works in the zoning department. So in my opinion, and I don't want to talk details about the particular case because there is litigation pending, but in my opinion, our zoning can be much more kinder and friendlier for businesses as well as for residents.
And that's what it's about right there. So maybe there's other fish to fry there with your other fellow trustees. So try and get them to maybe come around to your line of thinking here. Maybe a little public pressure is good because we need jobs. We need small business to thrive. Otherwise, this economy is never going to get back on track.
Well, Sloaney, if you can help me with that, I'd appreciate it. The votes are often 2-1 against me.
You want me to make fun of Lee Wong, the other trustee? Because I'll go after Lee. Why? Is his first name usually Wong?
No, I don't want you to make fun
Is he
of
the
Mr.
same
Wong.
guy that was in Caddyshack with Rodney Dangerfield? Is that the same Wong? Hey, Wong, this is a parking lot. Westchester's exclusive. Don't tell me you're Jewish, okay?
I don't think that was the same thing. And I do think for the most part, Mr. Wong is a good guy. He and I just disagree very much in terms of how government should be run and how government dollars should be spent and how should we should be held accountable to the taxpayer. Well,
you should be, and a lot of the funding that comes to support Westchester and your initiatives also come from the small business people that you're trying to hamstring here. So, unfortunately, this has become a big news story, George, and I had nothing to do with it, of course. And I think there's a reasonable solution here in all seriousness with Mr. Wong and yourself and the other trustee. Who's the other trustee, by the way?
Her name is Kathy Stoker.
All right, Kathy's got to get on board with you. Lee's got to get on board with you. Everyone's got to swim in the same direction here. Let's quit worrying about stupid little stuff like people dressed in costume making $6 an hour, and let's focus on some of the bigger issues like maybe potholes or maybe repainting the cone.
Yeah, and you bring up a really good point about being punitive to business. In Westchester, and these numbers aren't going to be exactly right, but they're going to be close, our commercial property is about 35% of the total footprint of Westchester, but that 35% pays about 58% of all the taxes. Now, and on the other side of that, Scotty, the people that are paying those taxes take out much less dollars in services. On average, for about every dollar a resident pays in taxes, they're taking out about $1.45 in services. For every dollar a business pays in taxes, they're only taking about 50 cents out in services. So here, not only are we punishing the group that helps us the most, but we run the risk of killing the golden goose, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I would think the government's role as an elected official is to certainly worry about quality of life, but this is not even close to that. So, hey, I got to roll. George Lang, thanks again. I appreciate it. You go fight the good fight.
Sloaney, you have a great day, my friend.
See you there. There you go. I mean, really, this is all getting down. So we call the guy, and he says, well, you got to call the zoning. You're the boss of the zoning department. Don't kick the can down the road. Been born at night, but it wasn't last night, son. Come on, Wong. Let's step it up a little bit here. Let's get together here. Come on, people. This ain't hard. Get some guy dressed in a Statue of Liberty outfit is not detrimental. It is not degrading to Westchester. It's degrading the guy who's making $6 an hour standing there dressed like a statue. News happens in 11 minutes. Forecast is looking great. I'll give you that in 3 minutes just ahead here on the